If I ever got a treat for you, I am at the Arkansas Museum of Fine Art, where they are displaying the exhibition Action, Abstraction Redefined. This is an exhibition that I wrote about but have not had a chance to see until now, and it has exceeded all my expectations. All right, to put this in context, we're talking about mostly the 50s and 60s, but broadly the 40s through the 70s. We've got Native American painters who are really, for the first time in indigenous art in America anyways, experimenting with abstraction, so non-representational painting. This largely came out of the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, which began in 1962 as a high school, but then became a college, and it remains the premier Native American art college to this day, with an endless list of the top Native American artists coming out of there. Tony Abeda, Rose Simpson, Kathleen Wall, it just goes on and on and on, including these early generation IAIA painters, many of whom are represented here, not exclusive, but many. All of the paintings, however, come from the Museum of Contemporary Native American Art in Santa Fe. So let's start with this Earl Eer painting here. This one is from 1963. And Earl Eer is one of those artists who I love every time I see his artwork come up, but that's rare. Only once a year, maybe, will I ever come across one of these in a museum show, sometimes at auction, but it's exceedingly rare, and I love all the variations of yellow he's got going on here. Again, when we think abstraction, obviously, but also action, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of motion in this painting. When you get up close, you know, it's buttery. I think he's probably using a palette knife on this one, a lot of paint on the canvas, and then he's using the edge of the palette knife to score some marks in here. So what a great way to start this exhibition with Earl Eer, and it gets better from there. I'm going to take you maybe to the highlight right over here, and it is by the great T.C. Canon. Okay, when you look at this painting in the middle here, what do you see? Do you see the dancers emerging from the fire? Do you see the figures emerging from the fire? This one, Firelights by T.C. Canon, 1965. Okay, so IAIA starts in 62. T.C. is enrolled in one of the very first classes. He's 19 years old when he painted this painting. 19 years old. This is a masterpiece. This is a painting that shows incredible maturity in the composition, in the image depicted, what he's trying to get across. It has so much confidence in it, and you think a 19-year-old's going to be like, hesitant and kind of leery about what he's doing. There is none of that in this amazing painting from the great T.C. Canon. Talk about greats, we'll hit another one over here, the great George Morrison. George Morrison was not an IAIA student, but among the very, very first Native American artists to work in abstraction, along with Oscar Howe and a couple of others, George Morrison's Ojibwe. And if you get real close to the canvas here, you can see the incredible layers of paint and how thick and luscious they are. It's like he's painting with cake frosting. There are multiple layers built up on this canvas. This fantastic pink. Obviously he's using a lot of white in here, as he does in this one as well. This is another George Morrison, but a much, while it's not a flat surface, it lacks the huge paint buildup of this one from 1965, which is almost reminiscent of like Wayne Thiebaud or someone who just has huge globs on the canvas. But I love this. I love the motion. Again, action, abstraction, all the swirling, all the mixing. He's mixing the paint on the canvas. He applied the paint directly to the canvas and then mixed it there. Love it. Here's a surprise to me. This, my all-time favorite painter, Earl Bates. But this is a very unusual Bates painting because it's so early. This one is 1967, so he's 21 when he paints this. Again, enrolled at IAIA in 65. This is from 67. A super thin application of paint on this one. I know Bates more for the scenes of figures and riders and kind of abstracted landscapes. This is untitled from his Mole Hole series, Mole Hole. But what he's done here is he's applied like a turpentine to the surface of the canvas, which has created this spotting and these drips down here. So this is reminiscent a little of color field painting, but again, you've got to put yourself back in the mindset. All of these works, this is the 60s. Okay, this is still the Indian boarding school era. Native American artists are not forced, but before IAIA came along, really directed towards representational painting. Powwow dancers and deer and buffalo and that kind of thing, and that's all great. There's nothing wrong with that, but they were largely pigeonholed, and Oscar Howe spoke out prominently against this. You know, is the art world going to keep us in shackles like the rest of white America has, and told us, you know, you can only paint this way, or can we paint this way? And like TC and George and all of these abstract painters who were finding themselves as artists, not primarily as native artists. Well, there is, you know, native culture is embedded in all these works. They are just artists, not native artists painting native subjects. Earl Bates, super early work. Talk a lot about IAIA, the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. The brainchild of this guy right here, Lloyd Keanu. Lloyd Keanu was the first director of IAIA in Santa Fe. You don't see a lot of paintings by him. He's more well known as a fashion designer and then of course an administrator, but not all of the credit, but a lot of the credit for IAIA and Earl Bates and T.C. Canon and Doug Hyde and Linda Loma Hafatewa and on and on and on up until the incredible artists coming out of there today goes to this gentleman right here, Lloyd Keanu. One of the first instructors at IAIA is this gentleman right here, painting instructor Fritz Shoulder. Fritz is the most valuable Native American artist on the secondary market at auction. Again, much better known for his figurative work than his abstractions, but here are two massive masterpieces of abstraction, both titled New Mexico number 40, New Mexico number 21. Can you see how these are landscape paintings? This one especially you can see as mountains receding into the distance, but that baked red summer heat New Mexico, you can tell from the titles primarily, but once you get them in your mind's eye, you can see those paintings as abstractions. We're gonna wrap up over here quickly with one painting from an artist I was not familiar with, but it's a spectacular painting. This one right here, what amazing, you know, this would be considered like hard edge abstraction. Carl Tubby, an artist I'm totally unfamiliar with, 1966, Nez Pierce 4. The vibrancy of this color like shocks your eyes almost. Obviously the tight linear geometry of this painting. I mean, the white is so white, the blue is so blue, the red is so red, and again these precise lines. Totally unfamiliar with this artist, and it just jumps off of the wall, as do many of these works. Here's a great Doug High sculpture, more what would be considered hard edge painting. So, we saw some, it starts with some works that would fall more into the abstract expressionism, and then we get the color field with the Earl Bates piece, hard edge abstraction. Here, some of these pieces. Another artist I was not totally familiar with who really shines in this show, Bonnie Buffalo. She's got a couple of pieces. Here's one prominent example, but what we're looking at here is Native American artists in mid-century America asserting their right to paint how they would like to engage with the conversations of modernism, to not be trapped in the past with representational painting and landscapes in Buffalo. And again, I love all of that kind of stuff, and many of these artists painted that kind of stuff, but they painted this too, saying we are a part of the conversation of modern art because we are modern and contemporary people.